Good morning, everyone. This is Carrie McCampbell-Tell, President of the Iowa Council of Foundations. I want to welcome everyone to this morning's peer learning call. Today's call is part of our year-long, mostly monthly peer learning call series. These calls feature colleagues who would like to share their experience with you on each month's topic. A full listing of the monthly topics and recordings of past calls can be found in the resources section on the Iowa Council of Foundations website. For today's topic, we will learn from several colleagues how their community foundation has benefited from participating in community needs assessments or partnering with local economic development initiatives. As a reminder, both of these concepts were shared in our June webinar titled 10 Ways to Strategically Invest Your County Endowment Fund Program Dollars, and that can also be accessed in the resources section of our website. We have three colleagues with us today who will share. First, we'll hear from Joe Sorensen, Director of Affiliates for the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines. Joe will share information around how the Enhance Hamilton County Community Foundation, an affiliate of the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines, helps spearhead a community needs assessment in their county and the benefits of their work as a result. Next, we'll hear from Randy Kuhlman, President of the Fort Dodge Community Foundation in United Way. Randy will talk about the Warden Building, Recreation and Cultural Center, which is a collaborative partnership that will change the culture of downtown Fort Dodge. And finally, we'll hear from Jason Nisus, Heart and Soul Coordinator with the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. Jason will provide an update on the work of the Heart and Soul Initiative to build community vision in Monticello. We will have each of our speakers share their information, and then at the end of the call, we'll open it up for participants to ask any questions or add anything to the discussion. As we get started, if everyone could please just make sure that their phones are muted, that would be really helpful. And then make sure you unmute before you ask a question at the end of the call. And also, if you have a question, if you could just please identify yourself and the community foundation that you work with, that would be really helpful. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joe to get things started.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate being on the call today. I'll do my best to tell the story. Darcy Swan, who serves as the Development Director for the Enhance Hamilton County Foundation, really would be the best storyteller, but she got pulled away into a community meeting today, so I'm filling in. But Enhance Hamilton County Foundation is one of our stronger affiliates of our 31 counties. Just to give you some context, Hamilton County is in north central Iowa. Webster City is the county seat. Their foundation was created through the County Endowment Fund Program legislation, and they have grown to about nearly $3 million in assets under their Family of Funds umbrella, and they have organizations and families that have also started funds with them. And so they're really growing to be a robust affiliate community foundation and doing some really neat things to serve their community, both from an asset development standpoint, but more we're going to talk about today from a community leadership and grant-making standpoint. And so about 18 months ago now, their local affiliate advisory board was taking a look at how they could be more strategic and focused with the investments they were making annually through their grant-making process. You know, they would definitely admit that they were on the more of a reactive and sprinkling spectrum for how they were making grants throughout the community. And so they wanted to move more towards a proactive and have some strategic goals behind how they were making grants out to the variety of nonprofit organizations. And so we started talking about, well, really to make those decisions, we need data and we need information to drive that decision making. And so that affiliate advisory board decided that investing in a community needs assessment could be a great way to kind of get a better sense of where the opportunities and challenges are within their county. And so by using their grant-making dollars, they funded this community needs assessment. This was something that they partnered with a local nonprofit organization that had an AmeriCorps Public Ally program within their organization, and they're able to contract with the nonprofit to have a public ally lead this effort to do a community needs assessment, something that their county or hospital or other larger governmental agencies had not done in a while. The primary goal was to go out and interview many different community leaders from all different parts of the community, whether it was government, private business, nonprofit sector, or civic leadership. And they also wanted to talk to them about a range of different issues and challenges and opportunities in the community, whether it was focusing on arts and culture, recreation, wellness, mental health, and diversity were two big ones that came out of the community needs assessment, but really just gathering people's input and compiling this into a report where the affiliate advisory board could take a look at this and see where they could put their grant dollars to hopefully move the needle within the community. So they went about doing this community needs assessment. It is for public use, so they did share it with a lot of different partners around the county. It's also posted on their website, and maybe this can be a follow-up resource if you visit enhancehamiltoncounty.org under resources. You can download their executive summary and also the full community needs assessment. So they would definitely say it was a worthwhile project to take on. And better yet, this report has not sat on the shelf, but I wanted to just real quickly tell you of 3 instances where I think they made investments into certain nonprofit organizations or certain charitable projects here recently that if they did not have the community needs assessment at their hands, I don't know if they would have made these grants. One of them was for capacity building. So Hamilton County is a very diverse county and different populations served, and there's an organization that serves the Latino community in Webster City, and they were a great organization, great programming from a management perspective and finance. They were weak, and so Enhance Hamilton County Foundation knew that serving these diverse populations is really critical to the economy in Hamilton County. And so they made a fairly sizable capacity grant to kind of right-size their operations, have the consultant come in, look through how things are being run, and make suggestions on how they could be more effective and sustainable in the future. So a capacity building grant. Another one was in Jewell, Iowa, which is just north of Ames. They did not have a dentist in that community, but they had done a study, and they knew that 35% of their population was underserved in terms of dental care, or they were on some form of Medicare, Medicaid, youth, and elderly. So they wanted to recruit a dentist to town, and so something that Enhance Hamilton County Foundation did was they worked with a local nonprofit there. They made a grant to them for this nonprofit to buy 2 dental chairs that they are currently leasing to the new dentist in town. In exchange, at least 20% of his patients has to be that underserved population, and he has to do dental care education in the school system. If he is there for at least 5 years, he can then buy the dental chairs from that organization. If not, they have 2 dental chairs that they can repurpose or sell and reinvest those dollars in the community. Again, a pretty, I think, progressive grant that I don't know if they would have made without the community needs assessment. The last one was recreation opportunities and being able to bring outside groups into the community was a priority through the community needs assessment. There is a golf course and a clubhouse that's owned by the county, Briggs Wood, right on Highway 20. They wanted to build a convention center to do a lot of these things I just mentioned. And so since it was with the county, they decided that since recreation was one of their priorities, that they would put up a significant grant, a matching challenge grant of $50,000 over 3 years that they would match private gifts 1-to-1 for the construction of a new convention center in their community. So again, those are just 3 quick examples of fairly progressive grants that they have made, really stemming from going through the community needs assessment and having that data and information at their hands to make those decisions. So I'll stop there, and if there are any questions after our other 2 presenters are finished, I'll do my best to answer them or be happy to connect you to Darcy, who can definitely get you the information.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe. I really appreciated the practical examples of the grants that the needs assessment informed. Thanks for that. And Randy, we'll turn it over to you next.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. This is Randy Kuhlman, the CEO of the Fort Dodge Community Foundation and United Way, and the project I'm talking about is one that our community has been thinking about, talking about, and even planning for the last 7 years. It's been a long, arduous process, to say the least, but we're getting close to making some very, very significant progress. Our project basically is a new recreation center that's combined with a new cultural center that includes a performing arts space, which is badly needed in our community. And we also have a downtown building. It's a 7-story building with over 300,000 square feet that has been, it used to be the crown jewel of our community, our downtown center, for back in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. It's been vacated now for about 20 years. And we have identified and came across some developers out of Missouri that are very interested in restoring the building and turning it into a true jewel for our downtown community, where they would have about 120 upscale apartments in the top 6 floors, and in the bottom 2 floors would be commercial space and also space for nonprofits and what have you. It's tied together with our cultural center and rec center project. One of the things from a community foundation standpoint that in Fort Dodge we believe is very important is, we all know we're in the business of raising funds and being a catalyst for developing funds that will benefit our community for the long term. But we also serve in a leadership role, and I've been privileged to be the chair of this planning committee for this project. And we've actually been in serious planning for the last 5 years. But now that we have an actual developer on board with us, things over the past year have moved very quickly, and we're excited about that. In Fort Dodge, just to give you a little context, our community is actually growing. We've seen significant job growth here with additions of some nice-sized manufacturing facilities on the west side of our town. Our retail stores have been coming back to Fort Dodge, so our retail base is growing. We have a vibrant recreational and opportunities in Fort Dodge. We have a great trail system now. We have wonderful parks. So we have a lot going for us that way. What we lack is our current recreation and fitness center, which used to be a YMCA, the building is 65 years old, and it's outdated, and it's in a position where we really have to replace it. And so this project that we're talking about is a unique project, and I know kind of the content of our program today was called Creative Placemaking, and I think this fits right into that mold. In fact, we had retained about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, a gentleman out of Des Moines by the name of Zach Mannheimer, who has been doing this around the state with other communities as well. And in those meetings with Zach, he had came up with a very creative idea, because we knew we had 3 key organizations and collaborations taking place in our community around 3 key projects. One was the rec center, one was the cultural center, and one was this Warden restoration project. And so Zach made the proposal that we ought to consider bringing all 3 of these projects together into one project. And at first, when that was proposed, we all looked at each other like, this guy's really crazy. But in fact, as we started thinking through this and had more discussion, the light kind of came on and said, this project really has some really unique potential that may be a really cool and exciting project that our whole community can rally around. And so we started working in that direction, and all of the partners started coming together and embracing the idea, and that really jump-started the initiative and the planning and really trying to get this unique project together. As a matter of fact, in our research, we have not been able to find one project similar to this anywhere in the United States. So we're excited about that. There's still a lot of moving parts with this. The partnerships are extremely important, but they're also difficult in that it's a public, private, and nonprofit partnerships all working together. We have a for-profit developers that now own the Warden building, are going to be redeveloping that building. We have the city of Fort Dodge and our county engaged in this project as well. And then we have, of course, the nonprofits of our Community Rec and Fitness Center, as well as our Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. So 3 unique partners that are working together. A lot of moving parts. There's historic tax credits, new market tax credits, all associated with a project like this. So there's a lot of planning, a lot of timing that has to go into these things, because we can't move this piece forward until we get this piece done, and we're kind of at the beck and call of the government agencies that oversee historic tax credits and new market tax credits. So again, we have to work together. It slows things down a bit because of that, but again, progress is being made, and we're very excited about that. I think what was forwarded to you is a couple documents about the project that you can look through. It's our rec center project is going to be almost 100,000 square feet of a brand new recreation and fitness center that will incorporate all aspects of fitness plus recreation of 2 full court basketball and volleyball courts, as well as 2 pool areas. One's a lap pool for exercise and swim training, and the other pool is a recreation pool with slides and zero depth entry and fountains and that sort of thing. So it's going to be a first-class recreation facility. The cultural center will include a space. Sometimes it's referred to as a black box theater, but it's really an open square, 9,000 to 10,000 square foot space where different types of performing arts events can perform for the public. And our arts and cultural community are very excited about that. The spaces we have now in town, they have to lease from either our local community college or our local school system, and sometimes those costs get pretty high. So they're excited about that space. And the cultural center will also include space for a small art gallery, as well as education classrooms that can be used for arts and education. And that will be incorporated all in the same building attached to the Warden building. And the reason we're attaching it to the building is that it takes that building to a whole new level then, because now the people that will be living in the upscale apartments in the Warden building will have direct access to the recreation and fitness center, as well as the cultural center. Plus, in the spaces, in the commercial spaces, we know there will be a restaurant there. We anticipate possibly a spa and other things, other types of amenities for people living in that building in the downtown area. This project is exciting for us as a community because of the fact that it's also an economic development project. Our larger companies in town, that their number one factor for sustaining themselves here in Fort Dodge and growing is, can we recruit and retain the labor force to Fort Dodge, Iowa? And so they are very interested in this project because they see this as a community asset, a community amenity that's going to help them recruit high-skilled employees to Fort Dodge and fill the positions that are open here, and maybe potentially give them the opportunity to continue to grow in the Fort Dodge area. So we see this truly as an economic development project. It's also, we believe, going to be a culture changer for downtown Fort Dodge. Our downtown has, back in the 70s and 80s when the mall was built on the east side of town, all the retail base pretty much moved out to the east side of town, and that really hurt our downtown community like it has around other communities our size and smaller in Iowa. where you see your downtown areas start to become vacant or dilapidated, and we have some beautiful historic type of buildings in downtown Fort Dodge, and we want to sustain those. And so this project, we believe, will be a culture changer because it's going to bring people back down to downtown where they're going to live and then recreate right in the downtown center of Fort Dodge. And our city council, our board of supervisors are excited about the potential of bringing hundreds of people every day to the downtown center, which will spur additional economic development around in and throughout the downtown area. So we think it's a culture-changing project. It's a significant project. It's one that's going to cost, the whole project together is going to be close to $60 million, which would be one of the largest projects ever done in our community. The rec center piece is about $22 million, and the Warden building is another $38 to $40 million. So we've got we're just getting ready to kick off our fundraising efforts. So we believe we're going to need to raise about $8 to $10 million privately, plus including grants into that amount, and then another $10 to $12 million probably through a public bond issue. So this has to be a project where the whole community has to rally around it, be all in, so to speak, because it will be we'll be leveraging private charitable donations with public tax dollars. So and that obviously takes a public vote. So still a lot of work to do, but we think it has the potential to really excite our community and get people rallied around it, and then hopefully we'll vote for it. And our completion date right now, if we able to stay on schedule, will be about the first of 2019, probably in about it's about 2 years out. So anyway, that's the status of our project, and we're excited to be a big part of it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Lots of moving pieces, parts, and people attached to that. So appreciate you sharing the detail of it. And Jason, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So as Carrie mentioned, I am with the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque, and we cover 7 counties in eastern Iowa, mostly along the Mississippi River here on the eastern edge. And when I started my work here to really help with community development work in our 7-county region, we started using the community heart and soul model for community engagement that was developed by the Orton Family Foundation. And just to give you a brief overview of what that process is and then how we apply it here in our 7-county region. So the heart and soul process is really based upon helping a community map out its future based upon what matters most in that community. So it is essentially a needs assessment process, but it's very focused on 3 primary principles. One is to involve everyone. And it's an integral part of this process and there's lots of methodology and tools for getting everybody in the community around the table. I think all of us in this field know that a lot of decisions get made in small towns by the same 10 or 15 people who are on every committee. Everybody's either been the mayor or on city council or something on a rotating basis for the last 25 years. We find those things frequently in our rural communities. So how do we get more voices at the table? And the tools and methods of Heart and Soul have been evaluated to be very effective at doing that. The second big thing is to really focus on what matters, not focus on deficits, things that have happened in the past or things that have been lost. We used to have our own high school. We used to have our own hospital. There's a cycle of deficits that a lot of small towns also get caught in. So instead of focusing on deficits, this is an asset-based process that focuses on what they do have. We believe that the strength of these small towns lies in the communities themselves already. And how do we identify those assets and connect them to their values and use that as a roadmap moving forward? The third big, so we've got involve everyone, focus on what matters. And the third big principle is play the long game. That these are not these are not quick or easy solutions in most small towns. So how do we establish stewardship and sustainability over the long term that's going to make meaningful investments in these small towns? So the Orton Family Foundation developed this very robust set of tools and guidelines to help walk communities through this process. And as a community foundation, we wanted to take this on because we had three big goals that we wanted to see happen in our rural communities. One was to increase the impact of philanthropy in our rural towns. So how can I work with the affiliate boards in all the counties in our region to hear what's coming up through the heart and soul process, to understand what's really going to make the biggest difference in these communities, and how that can then influence their grant making. All of our counties all do grant making on various levels. How can they listen and how can they participate in this heart and soul process in order to better make impactful grants? So that's one of our big goals. The next big goal was to connect with emerging leaders in our small towns and empower them to become part of this process to better their communities. Breaking into that leadership circle can be a problem in some small towns. And the heart and soul process has been one of the proven outcomes has been that new people find their voice and they feel recognized and they feel empowered to take a role in community leadership. So that's the second big goal that we have as a foundation for Heart and Soul. The third one really is to create a network of innovative communities in our region, people who can work together on regional solutions, who've got a shared experience of doing this kind of work in their region, who can then work together towards hopeful outcomes. Many of the things that Joe and Randy mentioned about attracting skilled workforce and increasing quality of life and these sorts of things, they're not specific to individual towns sometimes. They really are things that we need to work on regionally. A lot of the agencies and organizations that we work with in Dubuque cover a larger region. They cover multiple counties. So how are we aligning those resources around common values, really, about valuing the small town feel in our rural communities, making them places where our young people will return to? Those sorts of things are what we're hoping to create as a regional cohort. Now, I've been working deeply in two different communities with Heart and Soul. One is Monticello, Iowa, which is about halfway between Cedar Rapids and Dubuque on Highway 151, and Bellevue, Iowa, which is just south of Dubuque on the Mississippi River. We've completed the process in Monticello, and they have put together their action plan based upon an 18-month process of deeply digging into what people value, analyzing all that data, and then allowing people to use that data about their values to filter out the ideas that also came out through our process to strengthen their community. So using those values as a filter, because when you're asking people what would strengthen this community, a lot of times folks don't give it a ton of thought. When you approach them at an event, or you see them, or they fill out a survey or whatever, it's like, what would make this town better? And they say things like, I don't know, a movie theater. They don't really know sometimes, but that's okay. We're able to take that aggregated set of ideas and then winnow that down, filter it out using their deeply held values. So that's what happened in Monticello. We had all this data. We talked to thousands of ideas that came out of hundreds of surveys and hundreds of interviews and all these sorts of things that we were able to then present to the community. And they came up with 5 priority actions that they thought would strengthen their community. And I think I gave Michelle a copy of that document that can be emailed out to all of you or provided as a resource, just so you can see kind of one of the products. It's not the only product, but it's one of the tangible ones that's produced. And interestingly, so each one of our priority projects in Monticello had a liaison or a steward, a community volunteer, again, usually outside. I'm trying to think, almost all of them were outside the traditional leadership structure. These are just concerned community members who said, you know what, I'll help guide this process and keep everybody posted on what's happening on that action idea. At least 4 of the 5 were outside of that traditional leadership model. Then, what's happening in Monticello was very interesting because they also had the opportunity then to participate in Keep Iowa Beautiful's Hometown Pride program. And if you're familiar with that, it is a process that brings community leaders together to take action on items that are important to people in the community. A lot of times it's around beautification or investment in infrastructure that will improve the quality of life in that town. So this is a very close connection, obviously, to what the outcomes of Heart and Soul. So, and what we're finding is that Monticello seems a little better positioned to participate in the Hometown Pride program because they've already done a lot of the engagement. They've got their priorities set. They've got some action ideas identified. They've got a group of concerned citizens who are used to meeting regularly to talk about these things. And all of those things that I just mentioned about identifying projects and mobilizing volunteers, that's something that the other communities are just starting to do now. So the leadership team for the Hometown Pride program in other small towns in our region, they're all kind of sitting around and go, okay, who's going to be on this thing? What projects do we do? Whereas Monticello's kind of rubbing their hands together going, all right, we've already got our stuff. So it's been a really interesting process for me to see the hometown or the Heart and Soul process really connecting now with this action plan and really mobilizing resources around it based upon what matters most to them. So it's been a really cool and so far relatively seamless process to get them engaged in that. I'm very excited to see how this plays out. And I've been very involved, like trying to connect my Heart and Soul towns with resources like Hometown Pride, which provides a different set of resources, different financial and human resources that can help make their dreams a reality in their town. The work in Bellevue is not quite as far along. They're still doing some of their story gathering and data analysis, but I fully expect to be able to connect their activities too with things like Hometown Pride eventually. I'm also then very much trying to keep the community foundations in those regions, in those towns, engaged in this process. So they can see like, hey, here's what people care about. Don't forget when your grant making process comes along, or if you have any board members or staff members who are interested in participating in this process, this is how you learn about your community. And as I help with things like strategic planning and visioning for our other affiliate boards, I'm encouraging to think about processes like Heart and Soul as a way for them to identify the needs in their counties to help them be better stewards of their philanthropic dollars. So that's a quick overview of kind of the work that I do every day here at the foundation. So along with Joe and Randy, we can kind of maybe field some questions now from the field for any of us, I guess. Is that how this works, Carrie?
Yes, that would be great. Any questions from the participants?
Carrie, I'll ask a question. This is Michelle Wallstrom. I'm with the Iowa Council of Foundations, and appreciate all of the stories today and the good information that you're sharing. I had a couple of questions. So one for Jason, just wondering if you could share about how other community foundations around the state could take advantage of this Heart and Soul process, or how they could get involved and use something similar, or do they need to go through the Orton Family Foundation? Or could you just share about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The role I see foundations playing is really providing the leadership and the resources that small towns need to get this, to invest in this process. Because there is certainly an investment of time and money that needs to be made in Heart and Soul. You don't do an 18-month community engagement process without having staff to do it. And one of the models that's worked in other Heart and Soul towns is paying a coordinator who lives in that community to manage the volunteers, to keep the process on track. And that coordinator works with someone like me who can coach them through the Heart and Soul method in their town. So I would encourage any foundation who's on the line, or just in general, who's interested in kind of deploying this in your counties to contact me, and I can walk them through the financial and human resources that are needed to do Heart and Soul in any town, and then the role that their foundations might play in helping to do that. What I'd like to see in our region, and it's a long game, I mean, I'm trying to build the capacity for this in our own region too, is how can the foundation say things like, hey, we'll pay half the salary of your coordinator if the town pays the other half for a part-time coordinator to run this process. Or we will give grants to your town if you've gone through the Heart and Soul process. But if you haven't gone through Heart and Soul, how do we incentivize people to do the needs assessment, to participate in this process, and to make it an integral part of how the foundations do their grant making and how they support the community leaders and even like nonprofit leadership and all these folks to dig deeply into what matters most to their citizens and residents. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's helpful. And I appreciate you also connecting it to that Hometown Pride program, because I know a lot of counties are connecting with that program, and to know that, they could be ahead of the game if they're doing a process already like this, to tap into those dollars, I think makes a lot of sense. So thank you for making that connection.
And it's definitely something, I've been talking with Jerry Schneff at Keep Iowa Beautiful and things, when they come across communities who really want to participate in Hometown Pride, but they just don't have enough knowledge about themselves or about their needs, like send them to me. I can help them prepare and be better participants in Hometown Pride if they've done some of the work. So it's definitely a back and forth, and I think Jerry and I and the other Hometown Pride coaches have really thought about how can we work together to utilize what's best about both of our programs when it fits the needs of the community best.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have one other question for Randy, and then anybody else can, of course, ask their own questions as well. But Randy, could you talk for a minute, and I think you touched on it briefly when you were giving your presentation, just about the Community Foundation's role in funding these initiatives. I know clearly you're taking a strong leadership role, but because there's a mix of public, private, and nonprofit, can you talk about just what the Community Foundation is doing in terms of funding for these projects?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. That's a good question, Michelle. From a funding standpoint, number one, we are managing the charitable fund that people will be donating to. So all of the funds will be coming to a specific fund that we have established for this project, including we're also the lead grant-making organization as well, because most foundations and other granting entities want to work with 501c3 charitable organization, and so we're taking the lead in that capacity as well. And so those are the two main things. And then I will be chairing we're developing a fundraising committee that will be the main leadership committee for all of the fundraising we'll be doing. We've kept that committee to about 9 people at this point, because our first phase of fundraising is going to be with our major corporations in our community, and working with them and their foundations to land major gifts for the project. And then once we get into more of the community-wide fundraising effort, we'll expand our committee even further and get more people involved in making calls on people that have the capacity and interest in supporting the project. So we'll be leading those efforts. Obviously, from this kind of capital fundraising, sometimes a lot of community foundations don't get involved in that sort of thing. We're more focused on, establishing funds, endowed funds, and what have you. But, our board here in Fort Dodge feels that with us being in the lead and managing the fund itself, it puts us out there in the community as the lead philanthropic organization in our community. And we think the contacts, relationships that will be made through this process will directly benefit our efforts down the road when we start talking about more long-term types of funds, be they a designated fund or field of interest fund or a donor advised fund. So we think it's a win-win situation, for our community foundation as well as obviously as our community itself.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
Any other questions for Randy, Joe, or Jason? Okay, if you have questions and don't have their contact information, please feel free to reach out to our office. I believe Michelle sent the attachments and resources out to everyone who had registered for the call. If you didn't receive those, we will be posting a link to the call recording and also links to each of those attachments on our resources section on the website, so look for more information on that. And a big thanks to Randy and Joe and Jason for sharing information about this really innovative and leading work that you're doing in your communities. Really appreciate the different models and examples. So thanks to everyone for joining. I did want to provide just a quick reminder about our upcoming Connect conference on September 14th. This is a one-day free conference provided for you and your affiliate staff and colleagues. It's a good opportunity to learn, just like we've done today, from leaders across the state, but also from regional and national experts in the field. It's for Community Foundation staff, board members, and advisory committee volunteers. If you haven't registered, please do that. It gives us a good sense of who we know will be in the room that day. And if you have any questions about registration information, it's on the website, or feel free to reach out to me or Michelle. Thanks again, everyone, for joining, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Take care.